Hi everybody, this is Barry from Knitting for Love, and today I'm going to go over how I design my projects. Now, as you know, I am currently working on a project that's a sweater with several different stitch works involved, but say you want to design your own. And say you have a sweater that you really like a lot, but you don't like the pattern that's involved in the sweater. And I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process on how I do my designs for my sweaters. Actually, here's my knitting book. So take out a little notebook here. Flip to a nice clean page. As you can tell, I've been writing a lot. And like say, I want to design a poncho. But I want my poncho to be square, but also to be lengthy. So basically, I'm just going to draw a little triangle right here, a rectangle, as you will. And my drawing, it's primitive, but it's okay because I know what it is. And then I want to make it so it has a turtleneck. So I'm going to put it right here, and that represents my turtleneck part. And that part I will make separately from the rest of this. Now, say, and this is just primitive speaking. This is hypothetically. This is actually the process that I actually go through when I'm designing something new for someone or myself, is that I'm going to make a measurement that goes across from here to here. Now say I wanted to drape off the shoulders and go halfway down the arm. So that's why this is a little longer and this is not really that short. But I'm going to measure. My first measurement will be right here, and that's a 1. And then I'm going to come down here and put a 1 right here. And then I'm going to measure how long I want it. Now that I've got those measured, I'm going to measure how much of a gap I need for my neck, and how long of a length of my turtleneck part should be, the cowl, because I'm going to actually put a cowl on top of this. So I'm going to number it 1 through 4. So this is going to be number 3, and this is going to be number 4. Now, I'm going to actually make this poncho, and I'm making it in 2 pieces. So this is just front and back is going to look alike. I don't particularly care to make projects where the front side has all the nice and pretty designs while the back of me has nothing. I just, yeah. For me, that's not. I want the design to be front and back because I want somebody to see my work on the back of my item as well as my front of my item. For my cowl, I'm probably going to do a brioche stitch. So I'm going to put a B right here. So I'm just going to do a brioche pattern right here in 2 colors. Most likely purple and black. But we're going to take out our measuring tape, and I want to measure it from here to here. How long should it be? So basically this is from one elbow to the other. And I'm just going to say hypothetically that it is 50 inches between the 2. So I'm going to put 50 inches here. Now I want to say how long it's going to be. So it's going to drape off my shoulders into a point across my elbows, because as you know, if you've got a rectangle draping over you, you're going to have some points at the bottom where it's just going to drape lower than this part here. So basically I want my garment to be about 40 inches in length. So that's a pretty long garment. This thing is going to drape past my waist and onwards to mid-thigh level. So it'd be 40 inches. And then from here to here is my neck opening, which would be about 10 inches. And then from here to here should be about 3 inches. So I'm going to put these numbers all down here. So that's 40 when I say 10 inches, and then I'm going to say 3 inches. Okay, so now I've got my measurements all worked out for my pattern. I need to pick out my yarn. So I buy some yarn that I like. And I've got a set of knitting needles that I like. And the stitch count works pretty well. So I'm going to do a swatch in whatever size knitting needle I have. And I'm going to write the size knitting needle up here. And I'm just going to put hypothetically a size US 7. And then I'm going to put per inch, stitches per inch, and rows per inch up in this corner. And that'll tell me, once I do my swatch, that, and I'm just going to put on an example, say I get 5 stitches per inch. So I'm going to put 5 there. And say I get 6 rows per inch there. So now I'm going to actually multiply all of these things down here. Just figure out what my cast on is and how many rows my garment is going to be. So basically, I'm going to say from here to here, I get 5 stitches per inch. So I'm going to put 50 inches times 5, and whatever that number is, so that's 0, it's 250 stitches. So I'm going to cast on 250 stitches. Is that right? Right. So that'll be this here. And then when I go for my rows, it's per inch. I get 6 rows, 6 stitches per inch. And it's going to come out to 240 rows. So I know that when I'm knitting, as I'm knitting, I know where to stop at on both front and back, so they'll be equal, and I know how many stitches to cast on. And for here, this is inches, so this would be again 5, and this would be 50 stitches that I will hold for my neck. And then for my rows, for my brioche length, it'd be 6 stitches, 6 rows per inch, so that'll be 18 rows. So I'm going to knit 18 rows of brioche. So as you have it, now we have our body work laid out. We know how many stitches we need to cast on. We know how many rows we need to work. We're not decreasing anywhere and increasing anywhere. It's a very simple rectangular poncho. If you want to seam it up the sides, you can. If you don't, oh well. You don't have to. It's just an example of how I create my patterns. So what happens now is that now that I got all of this figured out with the yarn, and you could always write down your yarn, what you used over here, so you'll know. And you could actually put a little snip and tape it to the page. And then what I do is on the next page, I turn over a next page, next page. I'm going to draw that same rectangle again. Now I already know that my center collar here, the turtleneck collar, is a brioche stitch, so I'm not worried about that anymore. But I also I don't want this to be plain. So the way I design my sweaters is I'm going to write down what stitches I want. I want a cable. stitch, and I want a 3x3 cable. So that's equals six stitches. Then I want a seed stitch pattern, and I'm not sure how many I want yet. And of course I need some pearls, regular pearl stitch to go next to the cable, which I'm going to put down 3 pearls stitches on both sides of cable. So the seed stitch I'm going to make is my primary stitch, because that's what I want. That's me. And then this is 2, and then I'm going to have a garter stitch down here. 3 and 4. So I know what I want here, and this is going to be 5 stitches. So the way now I break this up to figure out where my patterns are and what I want is I'm going to draw a little line and make my block. And I'm going to say this is the seed stitch. I've got 250 stitches. Well, how many do I want to put right here? I say I want to put 100 stitches. That leaves me 150 to play with. So that's 75 and 75 on each side. So I already know that I want my pearl stitches to be here. And then I want a cable stitch to sit right next to it. So this cable and cable. So basically there's 3 pearl stitches, 3 pearl stitches, 6 cable stitches, 6 cable stitches. Now that I have that figured out, on the ends is where I want that garter stitch to be. So my ends don't curl. I want to stitch on the ends where it doesn't curl. And this is going to be a garter stitch also. And this is going to be 5 stitches and 5 stitches. So if I add up all these stitches across, so that's 10, 12, 22, 25, 28. So it's 128 stitches right now that I have sitting here. Okay, and I need to get to 250. So whatever the remainder is between these stitches, so I have 128, 250. Yep, and I'm doing old school math on the bottom of my page, and across any of my designs you'll see this. I'm very rarely using a calculator. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. So I'm going to have 61. So I'm going to have 61 stitches here and 61 stitches here left over. And now what do I want to do with those? Do I want to make them seed stitches also? Do I want to add in another stitch? I'm probably going to do a seed stitch and a seed stitch, and that'll be my garment. And that's how I actually measure out. Now I could put a different pattern in here. I could put a lace in here, a lace in here. But now I know how my pattern is going to be laid out. And that's how I actually design most of my handmade things. I don't really follow patterns at all. I just create my own. And this is a very simple thing to do. A very minimum amount of math involved in this. And of course, you do your swatch so you know what to expect. And you do a sample test of your pattern to make sure that it all measures up. Once you got a sample of this, I'm not saying do a block of 250 stitches. What I'm saying is do a seed stitch block of 20 stitches and do a cable block of 12 stitches, just to see if your stitch count still remains the same as the 250. So your gauge is going to end up being the same as these. Sometimes it's a little tighter, but that's alright. It's a poncho. It's a slip over. It's not a sweater. Now, I do have a pattern already done. I have to figure out where it is for a poncho that I'm actually going to be working on. And this was I have software that I actually create. This is for the purple sweater. I have to create the grid, work through the things. I had to make corrections in my own patterns because the written pattern didn't come out the same way. So I always test my own patterns before I go to publish them in a book. But this is how I keep track of that particular purple sweater. There's a lot of writing going on here. But that's about it. Here's a different poncho that I have set up. Again, it uses the cable stitches, 3x3 seeds and pearls, and here is not as big. It's a green poncho, and I'm starting to write out my stitches, and size is 10.5 US needles, 10 stitch markers, 3 stitches per inch. I'm using a very bulky yarn for this. That's why my stitches is 3 per inch. And my cast stone is only 150 stitches because it's not a DK weight yarn. It is a very chunky green yarn that I am actually working with. And if I could find the ball, I will show it to you. But at the moment, I have no idea where it went. But yes, that is it's a very heavy green yarn, very chunky. Oh, here's a sample of it. See how chunky that is? That's a chunky weight yarn. It's very thick. Compared to the yarn for the sock, which is a finger weight sock yarn, you can tell that the thickness of this yarn is very chunky. And we have a super chunky yarn, which is pretty much a little bit chunkier. So I would gather this is a 5 and this is a 6. In chunky weight yarn, you can see that it's definitely bulky, and I'm using a 10.5 US to knit with this, so I only get 3 stitches per inch. So yeah, it's going to be nice. And this yarn has wonderful specks in it. I believe it's Patons yarn. It's chunky and it's very soft. It's the tweed color, emerald green or forest green. I have the package somewhere. I can update the information below, and I can put a link to where I bought this yarn below as well. But this is the poncho that I designed for that, and as you can tell, I started handwriting out my pattern so I can put it in a book that I'm working on. And again, well, this one's going to have a pocket, so that's a pocket right there, and how deep the pocket is going to be. And then again, I have my rows. As you can tell, I've scribbled some out because of the math issues. I miscalculated how many stitches I needed to put in here. So yeah, there's a lot of panels on here. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. And I look forward to making more videos if this was helpful for you. If you have a pattern and you need help with, please leave me a comment below, and I'll see about, getting you an answer for that. Happy knitting. Bye now.